First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Welcome to WUFT News First at 5. I'm Ophelie Jacobson.
And I'm Kendall Brandt. Thanks for joining us.
The Alachua County Commission votes to spend $5.3 million in federal aid. The decision came at a special meeting this week. WUFT's Silas Morgan joins us now with a breakdown on one of the big projects. Silas?
Thanks, Ophelia. The commission voted to spend $1.25 million to upgrade a water system for the unincorporated neighborhood of Santa Fe Hills, which is located on the outskirts of the city of Alachua. The 56-year-old system has fallen into disrepair and been difficult to maintain due to outdated parts. Fecal coliform has frequently been found in the system, according to a county report. According to the CDC, fecal coliform is not dangerous, but can indicate that feces and harmful germs are present in the water system. The county does not own the system, but is responsible for its maintenance. A judge placed the system under county maintenance in 2002 after its original developer went bankrupt. The county plans to transfer operation of the upgraded system to Alachua City. The agreement between the county and Alachua City has not been finalized. It was mentioned that the new city manager of Alachua may need further persuasion to support the transfer. The upgrades are to include new water mains, meters, and lines. The county is still determining whether it can buy easements for the new lines or use right-of-way land instead. Construction is planned to start in May 2024 and be completed by the end of that year. You can check out the full story on WFT.org, but for now, back to the desk.
Thanks, Silas. A 13-year-old football player is dead, and his teammates are recovering after a drive-by shooting in Jacksonville. The coach was driving 4 of his players from tryouts Saturday when someone pulled up to the intersection and started shooting at them. 13-year-old Prince Holland was killed, and the coach is in critical condition. One other boy was shot but is expected to be okay. There is a $9,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest.
Residents in a Gainesville apartment complex are without power and Wi-Fi after a car struck one of the buildings Sunday morning. No one was injured in the crash, but the car damaged the electrical boxes on the side of the building. That took out the power, hot water, and fire sprinklers in the building. Now students living in the complex do not have Wi-Fi during their finals. Residents say the complex's management has not started fixing the damage yet. We reached out to the complex representatives for comment, but they are not giving comments at the moment.
Kendall, it's so terrible that their Wi-Fi is out, especially with finals in full swing. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, that definitely adds some extra stress. And speaking of finals, one of my favorite ways to prep for finals is by studying outside. So let's check in with WUFT's Shawn Humphrey to see what the weather's like out there. Shawn?
Well, if you're trying to study, it's going to be a bit stuffy out there, 80 degrees and a little bit humid, you know, normal Florida weather. It doesn't quite feel like fall outside, but it is clear. So if you like to stargaze while you study, just wait a couple hours and you'll have nice stargazing weather. Looking ahead to this evening, it's going to get a little bit cooler, but not much cooler. Those temperatures are going to stay consistent over the week, but skies again will be clear. That means it's great stargazing weather. And as you can see, high pressure system over the peninsula and the panhandle. But for now, back to the desk.
Thanks for that update, Shawn. Hurricane Ian caused major damage to the agriculture industry in Florida. Among those damages, beehives. Now beekeepers are rallying together with their communities in an effort to recover. Ian destroyed 100,000 total hives, which were drowned in 12-foot storm surges. That's as high as 8 beehives. The Florida Beekeepers Association collaborated with the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agriculture Services to help out. Greater Good Charities, a nonprofit organization, distributed more than 500,000 pounds of syrup and 96,000 pounds of pollen to over 100 beekeepers across Arcadia, Fort Myers, and Winter Haven. These supplies help beekeepers provide for their bees as they would normally depend on plant nectar and pollen.
Well, recent hurricanes uncovered a rare find off the shores of Daytona Beach. Reporter Mike Springer shows us the discovery.
Bureau 9 hovers over as state archaeologists work to excavate this find along the coast and Daytona Beach shores. It was unearthed just south of Frank Rendon Park after storms rolled through the area a few weeks ago. This team has been working since Monday to dig, uncover, and analyze what they found.
You can just see from people coming onto the beach to look at it, they're captivated, they're excited, they want to know what the mystery is, and so do we.
Chuck Mead with the St. Augustine Lighthouse Museum, who's leading the excavation, believes it's most likely a cargo or merchant ship from the 1800s, somewhere between 80 to 100 feet long. He says the materials, shape, and the fact that there were so many sailing along the coast then support this theory. Mead says it probably sank during a storm similar to the one that's now brought it back.
This definitely looks like a shipwreck to us. Some people speculated they thought it might be a dock, but this definitely has what you would call ribs, right, or the ship's frames. You can see these big timbers coming up at an angle, and then there's planking on top of those ribs.
The site of the excavation has drawn in onlookers, curious to see some of Florida's maritime history up close.
So awesome. It's so cool. Yeah, I'm so glad that I got to see it. It's very historical.
One that people here will be talking about for quite some time.
Wow, it's just crazy to see that type of history just sitting there undiscovered for such a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of history, and on a more somber note, today marks a sad anniversary in the United States. Coming up on WUFT's First at 5, remembering those who lost their lives 81 years ago today.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Welcome back. The midterm election season ends with Georgia voters again shifting the state from red to purple. The balance of power in the U.S. Senate will stay blue. NBC's Bree Jackson wraps up the heated race.
After a hard-fought campaign, you've got me for 6 more years.
The battle for Georgia's U.S. Senate seat decided. After going to the ballot twice, including for a runoff election, voters re-elected incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock.
The issues are not simple, they're complex. But here's my promise to you, I will walk with you even as I work for you.
His Republican challenger, former NFL football star Herschel Walker, conceded late last night.
I'm not going to make any excuses now because we put up one heck of a fight.
Winning Georgia gives Democrats a 51-49 majority in the upper chamber and more leverage to pass legislation despite Republican pushback.
So the Democrats want to distract the voters. Republicans actually want to accomplish something.
Warnock's election also closes the book on the 2022 midterms while setting the tone for the future.
This is going to could give Democrats momentum heading into 2023 and 2024 with a little wind at their backs.
This election cycle also sends a message to the GOP. Walker was one of several U.S. Senate candidates who was endorsed by former President Trump and lost.
For the GOP, stop doing stupid. Stop putting up candidates that you know damn well can't even articulate a campaign, let alone run one.
During his campaign, Senator Warnock promised to work across the aisle. He'll return to a divided Congress next session where Republicans control the House and bipartisanship will be key to passing legislation.
Today marks the 81st anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack, which killed more than 2,000 Americans. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese Imperial Navy launched a strike on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. President Roosevelt gave a speech to Congress the next day, famously calling December 7th a date which will live in infamy. 81 years later, there were still a handful of survivors at today's ceremony in Hawaii. The youngest active duty would have been 17 then or 98 today, though many of those still alive are over 100.
We have breaking news on the global front. Peruvian President Pedro Castillo has been impeached and arrested. Congress voted to impeach Castillo after he announced his intent to temporarily dissolve Congress. Several of Castillo's cabinet members rejected the move and some resigned from their positions. CNN reports that he has since been arrested by the Peruvian military. Vice President Dina Boluarte will replace Castillo and remain in office until July 2026.
A court in Argentina sentences the country's vice president, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, to 6 years in prison. She was found guilty of corruption during her earlier term serving as president. Prosecutors say she funneled 80% of the lucrative work for public roads to a family friend. She has temporary immunity due to her current position and will not immediately go to jail. However, she is barred from running again in any election.
Time magazine names its 2022 Person of the Year, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The magazine cover shows the leader surrounded by Ukrainian flags and faces. The announcement comes 10 months after Russia invaded the country after it claimed it needed a buffer for aggression and to strip Nazis from power. Other nominees this year included Elon Musk, Liz Cheney, and Ron DeSantis. Cold and flu season, sometimes it coincides with this cold weather.
Yes, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. Let's check in with WUFT's Shawn Humphrey to see if he can give us some answers.
We'll see clear skies over the next few days. It might be a bit warmer than we would expect for late fall weather, but Florida is as Florida does. Don't go anywhere. More after the break.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. NASA's Artemis 1 mission faces its final test this weekend to make sure naval crews can retrieve future astronauts from the capsule. The Orion space capsule is racing back toward Earth after orbiting the moon. NASA officials expect the Orion splashdown to happen off the coast of San Diego this Sunday. This unmanned capsule will land in the Pacific Ocean and naval units will sail out to it. If ocean conditions are calm, they will practice recovery tactics in preparation for future manned missions. We expect good weather there, and here let's check our weather with WUFT's Shawn Humphrey.
Well, hurricane season is over, but that doesn't mean tropical activity has stopped. There is one system of development. It won't have any impact here, and it's not quite a tropical depression, but you can see a center of rotation around there. Low pressure systems move counterclockwise, so that system has a center out past Bermuda, east off the coast of West Africa. Let's take a look locally. How locally? Right here in Gainesville on the University of Florida's campus. Those colors, we're seeing some orange and blue over the University of Florida's campus. Quite fitting, isn't it? Orange and blue, go Gators for the sunset. Even though the sun sets in the east, you can look outside and you can see some nice colors. So 79 degrees here, nothing too crazy, and it'll be pretty consistent over the week. And today, the temperatures across much of north central Florida consistent as well. 81 degrees in Cross City, high 70s, low 80s in most of the state, but that sea breeze is bringing St. Augustine down to 72 degrees. That's right now. Later on tonight, the lows around 59, 58 degrees, peaking in the low 60s. You'll see 63 in Daytona. And if you look at the highs for tomorrow, much of what we saw today, low 80s, high 70s, down to 74 degrees in Cedar Key. Nothing that we shouldn't expect to see over the next few days. Clear skies going forward. And as for our 6-day forecast, clear skies over the next few days, maybe a few clouds, but nothing that we shouldn't expect going forward. These temperatures starting to dip over Monday and Tuesday, but looking forward into the evening schedule for tonight. Tonight alone, 69 degrees early on, those temperatures slowly falling, and it'll be great stargazing weather. Those temperatures will be kind of mild, but the skies will be clear. You can look up, you should be able to see a lot of stars. Not quite many clouds to deal with, so that weather should be out of your hair soon, and it should start to feel like fall, especially late next week. But for now, just bear with us because it's going to be a lot of the same over these next few days. Back to the desk.
Thanks for that update, Shawn. In medical news, shortages of medication are hitting pharmacies across the nation, from big box stores to drugstore chains and local stores. Products from prescribed antibiotics to over-the-counter medication have been hard to find on the shelves. Some pharmacists are reaching out to secondary or third-choice suppliers. This hits during early flu seasons, which some experts blame on an immune system after effect from the COVID pandemic. Pharmacists recommend you check your medications and try to keep a bigger home supply of the more important ones.
Well, Gator men's basketball is gearing up for a tough test against a top 5 team tonight.
Yeah, they sure are, and the Yukon Huskies are in town for a showdown at the O-Dome. After the break, we'll take you live to the O-Dome and as Florida prepares to face Yukon.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Hey everyone, and welcome to sports. I'm Bradley Shimel. Florida men's basketball is hoping to shock the world tonight with a top 5 opponent coming to town. For more, we're joined now by Julianna Reichenbach, who is inside the O-Dome. Julianna, what do you have for us?
That's right, Bradley. The number 5 Yukon Huskies are off to an impressive start. They're 9-0, and their smallest margin of victory was 10 points against Oklahoma State. They also won the Phil Knight Legacy Tournament. The Gators went 1-2 in that tournament. But Florida's performed better its last 2 games. The Gators beat Florida A&M and Stetson by a combined 78 points. Will Richard returned from injury in that Stetson game to lead the team with 14 points. The story of tonight, though, will be the battle of the big men. Florida forward Colin Castleton versus Yukon forward Adama Sanago. The 6'9" Husky forward averages over 18 points a game, but Castleton's came out on top against big men before, like Auburn's Walker Kessler and Kentucky's Oscar Tshiebwe. Tonight, we've gotten word from the UF basketball staff that about 70 NBA scouts will be in attendance. Tip-offs at 9 p.m.
Thanks, Julianna. The Gator women's basketball team just keeps on rolling. Florida won their 7th straight game last night, defeating Presbyterian by a score of 78-52. Senior KK Deans led the way offensively for the Gators with 18 points, and the team remains undefeated at home this season. The team has played well offensively this year, averaging 76 points through 11 games. They look to win their 10th game of the season as they take on Miami in Coral Gables this Saturday. High school basketball was in full swing last night as Newberry defeated St. Francis Catholic 80-46. Senior Tyler Day was a force offensively for the Panthers, accounting for 16 points in the win. The Panthers have now won 2 straight and will look to keep things rolling as they take on the Trenton Tigers tomorrow night. Taking a look at some of the other games from last night as Oak Hall defeated Chiefland 45-41. Meanwhile, the Williston Devils handed the Gainesville Hurricanes their first loss of the season by a score of 54-46. And PK Young bested Eastside by a score of 52-37. Florida volleyball continues their NCAA tournament run against Pittsburgh tomorrow afternoon. The number 12 ranked Gators will take on the Panthers tomorrow in the Sweet 16. This team is coming off a sweep of Florida A&M in the second round of the tournament. This is Florida's 29th ever appearance in the regional semifinals. First service scheduled for 3:30 p.m. at the University of Wisconsin Fieldhouse. Well, the Gators may have landed their quarterback of the future. Minutes ago, quarterback Derek DJ Lagway verbally committed to play football at the University of Florida. According to ESPN, Lagway is currently ranked as the #1 dual-threat quarterback in the class of 2024. He and 2023 commit Jaden Rashada will look to compete to become Florida's starting quarterback.
Thanks for that update. Wednesday is actually a sweet day indeed. It's National Cotton Candy Day, and I think you know what to do to celebrate. Find yourself some cotton candy and eat as much as you want of it. Don't worry about the sugar. Believe it or not, a dentist helped invent the machine-spun cotton candy in the 1890s. It was introduced to a wide audience at the 1904 World Fair in St. Louis. Cotton candy has other names across the world, including candy floss and fairy floss.
And before we go, one last check on the weather.
Well, weather is expected to be consistent over the next few days, thanks in part to a high pressure system that's out across the west coast of Florida. You'll see a low up here bringing worse weather to parts of the southeastern United States. But here in Florida, it's nice and dry, nice and clear, nice and sunny. And as we look at our 6-day forecast, the rest of the week is going to look very consistent. You'll see 75 degrees getting lower over the course of the next week. Back to the desk.
Thanks, Shawn. BBC World News is next, and the PBS News Hour is coming up at 7.
But your Florida news is always on WUFT.org. This is actually my last show with WUFT before my graduation from UF, and I wanted to give a big thanks to the best co-anchor and friend, Ophelie, our production team, and our news managers. And for one last time, have a great night.